The human brain is wired to seek connection, yet in some individuals, the perception of emotional bonds is amplified beyond the ordinary. This heightened sensitivity is not a weakness, but a different lens through which relationships are experienced. It begins in the earliest stages of development, when the nervous system is shaped by the reliability or unpredictability of caregiving. A child whose emotional needs were inconsistently met develops a brain that becomes hypervigilant to social cues. This adaptation ensures survival in an uncertain emotional environment. In adulthood, this same sensitivity becomes a deep and sometimes overwhelming capacity to notice shifts in tone, silences, body language, and emotional energy. Neurobiologically amplified emotional perception is tied to heightened activity in brain regions like the anterior cingulate cortex, the insula, and the amygdala. These areas are responsible for processing emotional stimuli, bodily sensations, and threat detection. In those with amplified perception, these systems operate almost like a high-frequency radio antenna, picking up signals others might miss. A glance, a pause, a sigh are not just background noise, but meaningful data points. Imagine standing in a crowded room where most people hear the loud conversations, but you can detect the subtle changes in someone's breathing from across the room. This is the reality for those with amplified emotional perception. They feel emotional currents like weather patterns pressing against their skin. Yet this gift is not without burden. It can create intense emotional highs when bonds feel secure, but devastating lows when disconnection, real or imagined, is sensed. Amplified perception can lead to rumination, second-guessing, and a deep longing for certainty and emotional connections. It is both a source of profound relational depth and profound relational pain. In storytelling, this can be likened to a character who can hear the music of human hearts, each beat carrying notes of joy, fear, sorrow, or love. They live attuned to melodies others cannot hear, but the music sometimes grows too loud, overwhelming them with its complexity. Psychologically, individuals with amplified perception often struggle with boundaries. Their sensitivity makes it difficult to separate their own emotions from those of others. They may absorb the sadness of a friend or the anger of a partner as if it were their own. Empathy becomes both a superpower and a source of emotional exhaustion. Academically, studies have linked this phenomenon to traits like high sensitivity, sensory processing sensitivity, and anxious attachment styles. Researchers like Dr. Elaine Aron have explored how highly sensitive people process social and emotional information more deeply and intensely than others. Attachment theorists like Dr. Mary Ainsworth demonstrated that early relational patterns deeply influence emotional vigilance and dependency. In practical life, this means that people with amplified perception may form bonds that feel almost sacred, yet also fragile. They may find themselves devastated by small perceived slights, feeling abandoned by a delayed text or a distracted conversation. To them, emotional presence is everything, absence is a wound. This sensitivity can also lead to intense loyalty, devotion, and an unparalleled ability to nurture and understand others. In relationships, they are often the healers, the listeners, the ones who remember the details that matter. Yet they are also at risk of being hurt repeatedly because they cannot easily turn off their sensitivity. In myth and legend, this archetype appears often. The empathic healer, the seer who feels the future, the guardian whose heart is their greatest weapon and their greatest vulnerability. Their journey is not to shut down their perception, but to learn to live with it with wisdom and grace. For those who love someone with amplified emotional perception, patience, clarity, and presence are essential. They do not require perfection, but they do require consistency, honesty, and emotional availability. To them, small gestures are loud declarations and small absences are echoes of abandonment. Healing for the person with amplified perception lies in learning emotional regulation, grounding practices, and distinguishing between real and perceived threats to connection. It involves building relationships where their gift is honored, not exploited, where their depth is matched with steadiness. Spiritually, this journey can be seen as a call to refine their gift into wisdom, to become a lighthouse rather than a weather vane. A lighthouse senses the storm but stands firm, casting light for others without being pulled into every gust of wind. In conclusion, amplified perception of emotional bonds is a profound human experience, born from early adaptations, shaped by neurobiology, and reflected in art and myth. It is neither purely a blessing nor purely a curse, but a call to deeper living, loving, and understanding. The amplification of emotional bonds also shapes the way memory is stored and retrieved. People with heightened emotional perception often remember not only what was said, but how it was said, the micro-expressions that accompanied it, the subtle energy that filled the space. Their memories are richer, layered with emotional nuance, but this also means they are more vulnerable to emotional flashbacks when triggered. A small reminder can flood their senses with the full emotional weight of a past experience. This layering of perception can lead to emotional time travel where moments are not simply recalled, but relived. The body responds as if the original event is happening again. Heart rate quickens, muscles tense or relax depending on the nature of the memory, and emotions surge through the body. It is not a conscious choice, but a neurobiological reality where emotional memory networks light up with vivid intensity. In academic terms, this is connected to the functioning of the hippocampus and amygdala, which are involved in emotional memory encoding. When an emotional bond is particularly meaningful or distressing, it leaves a stronger imprint on these brain structures, making it more readily accessible during moments of stress or longing. Socially, individuals with amplified perception may find themselves misunderstood. Others may perceive them as overly sensitive, clingy, or dramatic. Yet this judgment arises from a lack of understanding of their internal landscape. They are not exaggerating their experience, they are simply experiencing more than others perceive. In relationships, they may require more verbal affirmation, more transparency, and more emotional presence. Silence can feel like abandonment. Vague messages can feel like rejection, and inconsistency can feel like betrayal. Their needs are not excessive. They are proportional to their perception. Storytelling often captures this dynamic through characters who are fiercely loyal but easily wounded, who love with a depth that terrifies them, and who often mask their sensitivity behind stoicism or humor. They are the knights who carry hidden scars, the queens who rule with compassion, because they know the cost of cruelty. Psychologically, this amplification can make individuals more susceptible to relational trauma, but it can also make healing relationships profoundly transformative. A steady, patient, and emotionally available partner can help rewire their nervous system, teaching their brain and heart that safety, consistency, and unconditional acceptance are possible. Healing often requires conscious work to build a bridge between perception and reality. Techniques like mindfulness, cognitive reframing, and somatic therapy can help regulate the intense emotional surges. Learning to ask for clarification rather than assuming the worst, cultivating self-compassion, and creating emotional anchors in trusted relationships can gradually reduce the painful aspects of amplification while preserving its beauty. Spiritually, this journey is a crucible refining the soul through the fires of emotional intensity into something luminous and wise. Those who survive their own inner storms often become beacons for others, lighting paths through emotional wilderness with tenderness born of lived experience. In conclusion, amplified perception of emotional bonds is not a flaw, but a fierce capacity to love, feel, and connect. It demands strength to carry and wisdom to navigate, but it also offers gifts of empathy, loyalty, and insight that the world desperately needs. Those who walk this path are not broken. They are bearers of a deeper song woven into the fabric of human connection. Amplified emotional perception shapes the way individuals experience endings and beginnings. While many people can compartmentalize endings moving forward with a sense of closure, those with heightened emotional sensitivity often experience endings as ongoing echoes that reverberate long after the event. A goodbye is not a simple moment. It is a ripple that touches every memory, every hope, and every bond tied to that relationship. The brain of an emotionally amplified individual replays the emotional bonds much like a musician might replay a symphony, hearing every note again and again. This can lead to difficulty letting go even when rational understanding says it is time. The emotional body does not move at the speed of thought, it moves at the speed of feeling, which can be slow, deep, and resistant to forced change. Neurologically, this is connected to the brain's default mode network, which is active during self-reflection and memory retrieval. For those with amplified emotional bonds, this network can become highly active, leading to persistent emotional rumination. Letting go is not simply an intellectual decision. It is a full-body emotional process that requires time, compassion, and often external support. Socially, this can create misunderstandings. Others may expect a swift return to normalcy after a breakup, a friendship ending, or a family rupture. But for those with amplified perception, the loss feels like losing a limb. Healing requires not just distraction or new connections, but deep mourning, honoring the bond and slowly weaving a new sense of self that can hold the absence without collapsing. Psychologically, this can manifest as complicated grief or persistent longing. Yet it is important to recognize that this is not pathological. It is proportional to the depth of connection experienced. Their heart, once intertwined with another, does not easily unravel the threads. In storytelling, these individuals are often the keepers of memory, the ones who hold the stories of what was, the songs of what could have been. They embody the truth that love leaves a mark, and that to feel deeply is to carry both joy and sorrow in every heartbeat. Healing involves rituals of closure, authentic expressions of grief, and the gradual creation of new meaning. Practices like journaling, creating memorials, engaging in symbolic acts of letting go and seeking relationships that honor both past and future can help ease the transition. Spiritually, this journey invites a profound understanding of impermanence and the eternal nature of love. Bonds may shift, change, or even end in physical form, but the love woven through them remains part of the soul's tapestry forever. Learning to bless what was even as one releases it opens the heart to future connections without erasing the past. In conclusion, amplified emotional perception is a double-edged sword in endings and beginnings. It intensifies both the beauty and the pain of human connection. Yet those who walk this path become deep wells of compassion, wisdom, and resilience, carrying the sacred knowledge that love truly does endure, even as the forms it takes continue to change. Healing from amplified emotional perception begins with understanding that sensitivity is not a flaw, but a strength. The first step is learning emotional regulation. Grounding techniques such as deep breathing, mindfulness practices, and sensory anchoring help calm the nervous system when emotional waves rise too high. These practices teach the body that intensity does not have to lead to overwhelm. Building secure relationships is another pillar of healing. People with amplified perception thrive when surrounded by those who are consistent, honest, and emotionally present. Steady connections rewire the brain, teaching it that not all bonds lead to abandonment or betrayal. Over time, the nervous system learns to expect safety rather than danger. Therapeutic work focused on attachment patterns, emotional regulation, and self-compassion is deeply beneficial. Modalities like somatic therapy, internal family systems, and emotionally focused therapy offer paths to healing that honor the body, mind, and spirit together. In therapy, individuals learn to distinguish between real present threats and echoes of old wounds. They learn to advocate for their emotional needs without shame. Thriving with amplified perception means embracing it as a gift rather than a burden. Sensitivity allows for profound empathy. It enables a person to notice the hidden needs of others, to create spaces where people feel deeply seen and valued. It fosters creativity, intuition, and deep relational insight. In leadership, it brings wisdom. In friendship, it brings loyalty. And love, it brings depth. Thriving also requires boundaries. Learning to recognize where one person ends and another begins is essential. Emotional openness does not mean emotional fusion. Protecting one's energy through discernment and self-care allows sensitivity to become a beacon rather than a drain. Spiritually thriving means seeing amplified perception as a sacred calling. It is the ability to feel the unseen, to hear the silent cries of the world, and to respond with tenderness. It transforms emotional intensity into compassionate action, into art, into connection that heals not only oneself but others. The benefits of amplified emotional perception are profound. These individuals often become healers, artists, counselors, teachers, and leaders who change lives simply by seeing and loving deeply. Their sensitivity brings richness to relationships, turning ordinary bonds into extraordinary ones. Their intuition often warns them of dangers others miss and guides them toward opportunities others overlook. Amplified perception creates people who cannot be indifferent to suffering, who are moved to act where others might turn away. It breeds courage, loyalty, creativity, and spiritual depth. It makes life more vibrant, more meaningful, and more interconnected. In conclusion, healing and thriving with amplified emotional perception is not about becoming less sensitive. It is about becoming more skilled at living with sensitivity. It is about turning a gift that once felt like a curse into a light that leads oneself and others through the beautiful, sometimes painful, sometimes. In a world that often moves too fast and feels too shallow, amplified emotional perception is a rare and sacred gift. It teaches that true connection is not measured by words alone, but by presence, by consistency, by the silent music of the heart. Those who feel deeply live deeply, and though their path is harder, it is also richer, more vivid, and more true. To carry such sensitivity is to walk among the unseen currents of human life, to feel the ache behind a smile, the hope behind a handshake, the sorrow behind a goodbye. It is to know that every bond matters, every moment matters, every breath of love matters. May those who bear this gift stand tall in their tenderness, honor the wisdom in their wounds, and light the way for a world that desperately needs more heart, not less. Their depth is not a burden to be hidden. It is a beauty to be lived aloud. In the end, love is not meant to be survived, it is meant to be sung. And those who feel it most deeply are the ones who keep the song alive for us all.